Good evening. I'd like to call the City of West Bend Licensing Board for Monday, March 18th, 2019 to order. And please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item number 1 tonight is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of the Licensing Board dating back to March 4th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. We'd be looking for a motion for items 1 through 10, 12, 13, and 14 for temporary Class B beer licenses for the Downtown West Bend Association for Music on Main being held in downtown West Bend, Old Settlers Park within the designated areas on, these are all 2019, on June 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th, July 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th, August 1st, 25th, 22nd, and 29th. And that is it.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. Item number 11 is a temporary Class B beer license for the Downtown West Bend Association for Music on Maxwell Street being held downtown West Bend, Old Settlers Park within the designated areas on August 8th, 2019 from 11 a.m. through 10 p.m.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. Item 15 is a temporary Class B beer license for the Downtown West Bend Association for Wheels on Main being held downtown West Bend, Old Settlers Park within the designated areas on September 1st, 2019 from 7 a.m. through 3 p.m.
Motion to approve.
Second. A motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? That motion carries. Item 16 is a temporary Class B beer and wine license for the Downtown West Bend Association for Music on Main being held downtown West Bend, Old Settlers Park within the designated areas on September 5th, 2019 from 5 p.m. through 10 p.m.
Motion to approve.
Second. A motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. And item 17 is a temporary Class B beer license for the Downtown West Bend Association for Toad, Tour of America's Dairyland, being held on June 24th, 2019 from 10:30 a.m. through 9 p.m. The attached map has a designated area for beer.
Motion to approve.
Second. A motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. Thank you to the Downtown West Bend Association for putting all of your information in one meeting. We appreciate it. And item number 18 is approve the operator's licenses with the list in our packet.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. And being no further business before the licensing board, I adjourn.
Thanks, Craig. I'd now like to call the Board of Public Works. We have 2 items on tonight's agenda, the first being the minutes from the meeting on February 18th.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion or changes? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is permission to award contract 19-05 tree surety with a presentation by Cindy Lyons. Cindy?
Good evening. We sent these requests for bids out specifically to 7 contractors and put it on the Quest site for bidding. We got back 1 bid. There was good news because it's Dan Larson who's done this project for the last couple of years for us. The base bid that he provided was $59,219. 2 alternates, one for digging handholds at $20 each, and one for additional watering cycles at $700 each. The base bid includes planting 305 trees, excuse me, and 12 weeks of watering in addition to mulching and staking the trees. We are looking for permission to award the base bid plus $9,800 if we need to award that extra 14 weeks of watering, plus another $800 for whatever hand dug holes he needs to do, and 3% contingency for a total of $71,913. That's all I have.
Any questions for Cindy?
Motion approved. Second.
I think Craig had a question.
Cindy, how does price per tree, looks like the base bid's a little less than a couple $100 a tree. How does that compare to years past since we just have one bidder?
We also bought trees from Johnson's, pre-purchased trees, and this year Dan's price for planting went down about $14 a tree for the pre-purchased trees. The trees go up every year in price a little bit, but his actual bid for planting the trees is less than last year, the ones that we pre-purchased. So the other ones went up a little. It's only like $1,000 or so more than what we had last year for the base bid.
A little less than a 2% bump.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, we do have a motion and a second, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. And I adjourn the Board of Public Works.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Finance Committee for March 18th to order. We have 10 items on the agenda. Item number 1 is to approve the minutes of the March 4th meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed by the same sign. And that motion carries. Item number 2 is a presentation by Sarah Schnoor regarding setting up an OPEB trust account. Good evening, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. Let me just pull this up. So as mentioned, I'm Sarah Schnoor. I am a relationship manager with PMA, and my colleague, portfolio advisor Jordan Thoreau, who is a resident as well, he came to say hello to everybody, are here to talk to you a little bit about the process that we went through. There we go. With staff to talk about, did that come up? Oh, there we go. Excellent. The process that we went through with staff in kind of talking through an OPEB portfolio for the city. As you may know, over the years, the city has committed funds for post-employment benefits for its employees, and due to new recent changes with the GASB, in order to have those funds that have been restricted for that purpose be reflected in your financial statements, a trust needs to be developed. And I think there's some language in your packets related to the work that that staff did to find a firm that was able to provide this service, and that's how I ended up here today. So who is PMA? We are an investment and financial advisory firm for local governments. I work out of our Milwaukee office. There's about 135 of us that provide services through 3 firms. One is PMA Financial Network. The other, Prudent Man Advisors, is a registered investment advisor. And finally, PMA Securities, which is a broker-dealer as well as an investment advisor. We serve over 2,600 local governments, and as of the end of last year, managed approximately $25 billion of only public funds. Here in Wisconsin, we work under an intergovernmental agreement called WISC. It's the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative, and it was a pool that was created by school district officials almost 30 or just over 30 years ago. We do have municipal representation. About just over 10 years ago, we were allowed to expand that charter to allow all public entities that are allowed to enter into an intergovernmental agreement to participate in WISC. So since then, we've had a number of cities and counties that have decided to participate, and that's reflected in our board governance as well, with Brad Karger, who's the Marathon County Administrator, and Kathy Kaza from the city of Wapaka serving as board members and those people who oversee the work that we do as the contracted firm executing the investments through WISC. Again, this is a pool that's available only to public entities. We've got about 225 public entities currently, 50 of those being municipalities and counties. So when we think about the guiding principles of public investments, especially long-term investments such as those for post-employment benefits, we're thinking about safety, liquidity, and yield third. And that really is echoed in the city's investment policy as well. And once we're able to start working with staff and thinking more about the actual liability and trying to invest out towards some of the dates that these funds will actually be needed, those are the things that we're thinking about first and foremost, providing a safe option that provides liquidity as things may change as well. But always looking out for the best yields in the market, and to give you kind of an idea of really what the space that we're focused on in the financial markets really is, that very highly rated, whether it's government agencies, municipal securities, bank deposits. There's really, it's the most high quality types of investments with very little risk to the city as you're thinking about those types of investments. One of the other things that we're constantly thinking about is where on the maturity ladder these may fall. And ultimately, what we want to do is work with the city to identify when these funds will be spent. There's actually 3 different potential accounts that would be added for each of the different funds, and thinking about, are those going to be needed in that 0 to 12 month range, in that 12, 24 month range, or even out maybe 3 to 5 years from now. But still making sure that as we're thinking about these investments, making sure that there is that opportunity to liquidate as needed. I think one of the other things that worked out really well as we started these conversations is back in 2007, Quarles and Brady created a standard OPEB trust document. So as you're thinking about creating this trust, and you'll see that there's a lot of paper in your packets related to this, Quarles and Brady helped us to provide that type of standard document to our clients to in an effort through the co-op to save additional funds for local governments as well. And it has been updated to include all municipalities as well as school districts in that trust. Finally, as we think about where the market is and where it's been over the last few years, for 2 years have been talking about investing in a rising rate environment, and we've all experienced the volatility in the markets in our own accounts over the last few months. And this is just a quick update on kind of where rates are right now. We'll always try and be thoughtful about where those investments are placed, but also strategic as well, as we pay attention to the markets every day and try and get an idea of where the best opportunities are for the city. Finally, on an annual basis, a trust is required to receive an OPEB liability statement from its investment advisor on an annual basis. This is just a quick overview of what that statement may look like. And then that gets passed along to your auditors and would be included in your financial statements going forward. Any questions from the group related to this project or OPEB in general?
Yes, Craig.
just to clarify, I think for the council that these aren't new dollars, we're really just accounting for them in a different manner.
Right.
If I understand correctly.
Right.
And then, am I correct that this total amount for water, sewer, and then our general fund, I'll call it, that will then reduce our unfunded liability by the same amount? Is that right, Carrie? Okay.
Yep. So it's a total of $1,160,000 that we're talking about tonight.
Gotcha.
And those funds have been restricted in your fund balance for a number of years, correct? It's just these new regulations that are forcing you to take this added step.
Gotcha. Thank you.
This might be a question for Carrie. But in regards to the report here, you talk about contacting Baker Tilly, Ellers, our local bank, and all that. Can you talk about what's the, I don't want to say the difference, but what's the difference with the service that you provide and why we ended up going through PMA?
Maybe you want to touch on it too. Sure. We can tag team here. So I did start with our local bank and as well as our Ellers Investments advisors. And the problem is that there's certain restrictions in order to qualify for the OPEB trust. So we had met with the recent VIBA administrator, and he had suggested Sarah. So that's how we came across Sarah. So Michelle Hoy and I have been working on this together.
So the issue was that the restrictions limited our ability to do what we want to do through Baker Tilly and all that?
Yes.
Correct? Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
There's not a lot of vendors that are working in this space is really the answer.
Go ahead, Mike.
Sarah, thank you. Can you address the idea of the earnings on these accounts? Are there restrictions on what the community is allowed to do with the earnings on these accounts?
So all of the funds that are deposited into the account as well as those earnings must be spent on the post-employment benefits that have accrued to date.
So specifically for post-employment benefits and not for any projects or anything in conjunction with these divisions? It's specifically for benefits?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sarah? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Item number 3 is a presentation by Ehlers regarding the sale date of issuing and refunding bonds. With a presentation by Dave Ferris. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening. So you all have 2 reports in front of you. There are sale day reports. First of all, I want to thank you very much for allowing Ehlers to be a service to the city and for allowing me to be here to present your bond sale results. We have some pretty great news to share with you as far as the sale results. Earlier today, we took bids on the 2019A and 2019B issues. I'll start with the first, the 2019A issue. So if you turn to page 1 in that report, this is a summary of the sale that occurred earlier today. The amount of the borrowing is $4,890,000. The purpose of the issue was to current refund the 2009 water system revenue bonds, the 2008 water system revenue bonds. The refunding of these 2 allowed the water utility to free up some required debt service funds, and they were able to be applied to reduce the size of the refunding, and has basically left the village or the city without any revenue bonds for the water utility at this point. The issue also current refunded the city's 2011A general obligation corporate purpose bonds. It provided funding, $2 million of funding for general street projects and fire equipment, and then another $809,000 for 2019 water utility projects. As many of you are aware, a couple weeks ago, Ehlers staff and the city staff sat down and had a conference call with Moody's Investor Service. The results of that call had Moody's giving the city a AA3, which is an affirmation, bond rating. I know that the city's disappointed with that. Ellers is also very disappointed with that. We know that the city's been working very hard to try to improve the financial items that led to the downgrade a few years back. In fact, we've been working with the city. I've been helping Phil Costin with some things with the advances, and we know that's one of the areas that they obviously brought out in the report. But I think, it's important for us to also read into the report a little bit. There's a couple items that we definitely wanted to point out to you. And on page 10 of the report that I gave you is the credit report. On page 10, under credit strengths, Moody's says that the city demonstrates sound financial operations characterized by healthy reserve and conservative budgeting. That's a really positive comment. At the bottom of page 11, Moody's says the city's finances have improved over the past 5 fiscal years, resulting in a fiscal 2017 available general fund balance of $6.5 million, or a healthy 28.5% of revenues, up from $2.6 million or 12.3% in fiscal 2012. Officials attributed the fiscal 2017 operating surplus of $761,000 to personnel cost savings. At the close of fiscal 2017, with an available operating fund balance of $6.6 million, or a healthy 25% of operating revenues. That next paragraph talks a little bit about what I was talking about with the advances between the TIDs and the utilities. That's obviously an area that Moody's has expressed some concerns with, but the last sentence in that paragraph talks to continued improvement in TID performance would be a credit positive for the city, and I think they recognize the fact that you are moving towards getting the advances paid off. The last item is down under debt structure. All the city's outstanding debt is fixed rate. Principal amortization is rapid, with a 91% of debt retired in 10 years. They like that number. They find that the faster you're paying it off is a positive. So there are some positive that we're reading out of this. Unfortunately, Moody's did not find that it was time to give you an upgrade. Yes, sir.
Quick question, I'm not putting you on the spot, but on page 10 at the top, it says West Bend AA3, Milwaukee A1 stable. Is AA3 better than A1 stable?
Yes.
AA3 is better than that?
Yes.
So West Bend is better rating than the city of Milwaukee?
That's correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions about the rating report? Is there anything you want to talk about with that? Okay.
Oh, Rick. Sorry. Just because I'm curious, because I work in municipal government too.
Mm-hmm.
So under credit challenges, the third bullet here says limited revenue raising flexibility due to state imposed levy limits. Considering that's a problem for all municipalities. Why is that seen as a ding to West Bend?
You probably see it on all of the rating reports as well. So there's nothing really you can do about it unless the governor gets through at least that 2% increase or the inflationary increase that they've talked about. So.
Yes, Greg.
Just for the council's benefit, I've been on most of the calls over the last 7 or 8 years, and the credit strengths shown on page 10 have been virtually the same. The credit challenges are equally similar. Mm-hmm. And I guess what's frustrating is that Moody's didn't give us the benefit of saying, hey, if your debt was at X, then your bond rating would change. As we all know, we've reduced debt by almost 50% here in the last 5 years. So it's some frustrations I have, and I'm hoping that it leads to us exploring other opportunities for bond rating agencies, in addition to Moody's, someone that would like to take our efforts a little more seriously than it looks like they're doing.
Yeah, and if the city wishes to reach out to other rating agencies, we can definitely get you in contact with them. I mean, you have a couple options as far as working with those other rating agencies. There's what they call taking a peek. It's kind of a preliminary look at what your rating might be with another rating agency. That would actually have a cost associated. It wouldn't be a full bond rating. cost, but you could also go down the route of doing a full bond rating with another agency. The one thing you probably would want to have them do is come up here and give them a tour of the city and tell your story, because you obviously have one. So that's kind of the route we could go. So if you're interested in that, we could definitely reach out to the potential other rating agencies if you want to talk to them.
Is there, last one, I promise.
Sure.
Is there any indication of what our interest rate, looks like the low bid was 2.34, what that would have been if we were a AA2? If we were, I mean, is it that, would we have saved 1/10 of a point? Would we have saved 100th of a point? Because aside from the possible fiscal impact, it's kind of a pride thing for me, the work that we've done. This is done some pretty cool stuff here. And again, for them, after 8 years of seeing our debt go down, our reserves go up, our TIFs are much, much stronger than they were. We've got a new OPEB procedure about to come in place, all kinds of neat stuff. It really is kind of a pride thing that, are they really taking our efforts as seriously as we have? Especially when we're paying them to do so.
And the funny thing is I was your audit manager for Virtua Crowsash Baker Tilly back in the 90s, and I have some history with you, but I looked at some of the numbers in the report, and your fund balance percentage and a lot of those percentages really do look good. So we're as mystified as you are. Like I said, we're disappointed. We kind of thought it was your time. They obviously have some kind of a set report that they enter their things into, and maybe that's just too canned. Maybe they need to look better at what the trends are and how the city has done some pretty amazing things with, even how you're using your debt adjustment on the levy limits spreadsheet. So it's definitely something to be concerned about. I agree with you.
I appreciate you guys communicating with staff on what alternatives we have, because it just seems like they're being a little bit lazy to me, and cutting and pasting 2018, 17, 16 to 2019.
Well,
and
I think
we deserve better.
I think what I've heard is that it's really easy to get a downgrade, but it's really hard to get back up. So
We know it.
Yeah.
We've been
Yeah.
doing the work. Thank you very much.
So as far as the rest of the report, the amount of the bonds that were sold today was $4,890,000 compared to the $5,230,000 that was shown in the pre-sale report. As a result of the winning bid, which had a premium, we were able to downsize the issue by $340,000. The reduction of the size, along with the interest rates, will result in an overall principal and interest savings of about $147,000, less than the pre-sale estimate that we presented to the council last month. Within this issue, we had some refundings for the water utility. The savings that you realized from the refunding of the water utility was $443,000. That did include a transfer from the debt service reserve fund, though. For the capital general fund debt service, you refunded the 2011A issue, which resulted in $147,000 of savings, or 8.57% present value savings, which is pretty amazing. The number of bids that you received today was 7. Typically, we're happy to have at least 3. If you looked on page 2 and 3 of the pre-sale report, you will see the bidders, the underwriters that bid on this. The winning bid was by Raymond James and Associates out of Memphis, Tennessee, with a winning bid of 2.3468%. They had the lowest true interest cost. On the next couple pages is the order in order of true interest cost of the remaining bidders, and as you can tell, we had 7 bidders, with Bernardi being the last one, and their interest rate was a little kind of crazy outside of everybody else's, but that difference, between that high and low bid saved you $49,000. As far as the proceeds from the borrowing, you can anticipate receiving your funds on April 3rd, so you can start paying off whenever the current refundings are going to be paid off, and paying on the projects or the equipment. As far as the rest of the report, on page 4 is this is a comparison of what the pre-sale report that Phil presented about a month ago compared to what the finals were, so you can take a look at the comparison of those. Page 5 would be the breakout of the repayment schedules between the different items that went through here, the new money, which was to be the streets and the fire, the water, new money, and then the breakout of the repayments on the refunding issues that went through this issue. On page 6 is our capital improvement plan that we work with the city on. It has the existing debt service, the new sales in there, and then the next, looks like about 9 years of project years. And what we do is we use this schedule to kind of take a peek into the future and see if we can get that debt service tax rate to be stable. And you'll notice that that tax rate that's in the second to the left column has a nice stable flow downwards, giving the city the ability to keep doing those projects on an annual basis. The following pages on 7 through 9 are just some pages that show the savings on some of the refundings that were done. We already talked about the rating. And then, let's see. I thought there was a graph in here, and you can see on the last page kind of a history of the interest rate over the last year. We're trending back downwards. I received an email this morning that shows even in the last 4 weeks, the interest rates have gone down a pretty steady decline. Any questions on the 2019A issue? Do you want to address that resolution first?
I think we'll just go forward, but we'll take the resolution.
Okay. The second report you have in front of you is the sale of the 2019 B taxable general obligation refunding bonds. Total issue was $1,975,000. The purpose of the bonds was to partially refund the 2010 D taxable general obligation refunding bonds. You know, even though the net present value savings was not substantial, the refunding allowed the city to use funds on hand, which aided in the reduction of the annual anticipated shortfalls in TID number 10 and has helped out on the amount that the developer is required to make up as part of that. The amount of bonds that were sold today was $1,975,000. When Phil presented a month ago, that was $1,990,000. Based on the winning bid, which also had a premium, we were able to downsize the issue by $15,000. The reduction of the issue size along with the interest rates received will result in an overall principal and interest savings on the issue being $42,759. And that actually is how much the amount that the developer in the cash flow, when we go back to that page, shows that's how much the actual cash flow that the developer saved on how much they would have to cover of shortfall. The refunding savings for TID 10 was $46,000 or 1.9%. Like I said, this wasn't done for mostly savings. It was done for structure and for assisting that cooperative relationship that the city has with the developer. The savings, along with the fund balance applied, greatly reduced the future shortfalls to the developer. And that actually, between, I think that now in the next 7 or 8 years, say between $3,000 and $10,000 on the annual amount that the developer may have had to pay. Once again, the number of bids received was 7. On page 2 through 3, you also see the bidders that participated on the 2019 B. The winning bidder was Northland Securities out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. True interest rate of 2.7196%. You'll see the other 6 bidders on the next page in order of their interest rate. Most of the bids were fairly tight, except that Bernardi was again once a little bit higher, but it was kind of a little bit tighter bid as far as how much the savings was between the high and low. Obviously a smaller issue, but the difference was about $16,000 between the high and the low. Once again, the proceeds will come in on April 3rd, which you will be able to use towards the refunding of the taxable GO refunding bonds. As far as the other schedules within the report, this has the TIF 10 cash flow in it as well. Page Page 4 is the same schedule that you saw in the last one, the 2019A, but in the two far right columns is the B comparison that you can make. Page 5 has the TIF increment forecast based on the value that has been established in the TIF district, the new value. It's generating about $787,000 in increment right now and projected to be close to $1 million if the TIF stayed open as long as it possibly could. And then on page 6 is actually the cash flow for TID number 10. That third column from the left is the amounts that the developer is responsible for, and that's the column that was actually where the savings was realized from the refinancing, the refunding. And this, otherwise, the schedule is pretty much the same as how Phil presented it last month. Any questions on the B issue?
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate you going through this. Any other questions for Dave before we go into resolutions? Okay. I think the key thing we want to remember is that the vast majority of the dollars that are coming with these bonds are for refinancing. The minority of the money is new money borrowings for our capital.
And you'll want to approve that by roll call vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you. All right, so we'll start with all the resolutions. Item number 4 is a resolution authorizing entry into an intergovernmental cooperation agreement relating to the Wisconsin Investment Series Cooperative and authorizing participation in the investment programs of the fund. So this has to do with the OPEB that we just heard about from Sarah. Any comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. And that motion carries. Do we have to do that one by roll call as well, or is that just the borrowings?
The roll call will actually be a common council. This is
I'm
just
sorry.
a recommendation.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. Item number 5 is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $5.23 million in general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2019A, that we just heard about from Dave Ferris.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion carries. Item number 6 is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $1.99 million in taxable general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2019B, also what we just heard from Dave.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion carries. Item number 7 is a resolution approving carry forward appropriations from 2018 to 2019. The presentation by City Administrator Jay Shambo.
You have the documents in your packet. Carrie and I will attempt to answer any questions that you might have. I can just highlight a few items, maybe process-wise, starting out, that council should know. We met with department heads on several occasions as a whole, and then one-on-one with individual department heads as they brought forward their carry-forward requests. Some of them are annual carry-forward requests that are required, and they're noted as such in your packet. Some are, I'll say, negotiated. There are items that were not funded that were requested by department heads, in some cases small amounts that I thought could be handled in the 2019 budget, and in other cases items that maybe didn't rise to the level of priority with the available funds that we had at the end of 2018 with unspent funds. So these are 2018 unspent funds totaling $570,000, with about $30,000 being forwarded or recommended to be forwarded if we don't have any audit adjustments to the fund balance, which you can see the growth of the fund balance from previous year to the 25.31, and then Carrie's memo on page 144 in your packet, which explains the taxi advance from settling that from 2017. And if there's specific questions about that, I'm going to defer to Carrie. But Carrie, if there's any carry forward questions regarding process or the specific items that you see on the documents before you, I can attempt to answer them.
Gee, I don't remember if I asked this last time or if I asked you one-on-one. Under parks, the summer picnic SD food and labor for 32 grand. What is that one?
That's the summer picnic lunch program that if you want more detail about, I can ask Craig to come up. But it's an ongoing program that we've had carry forward balances in the past. Craig, you want to speak to it in more detail? Please.
Is that the one that Walmart used to fund?
Correct. We had 2 different grants we had received back a number of years ago. So it's all money that just stays in the account and it repopulates basically. So it's not new city money, it's just something we carry over from year to year.
Gotcha. So it's still grant dollars or donated dollars, whatever it is.
Correct.
That's what I was hoping to hear. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion on this item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Last call for comments or questions. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion carries. Item number 8 is an unaudited 2018 general fund results. Presentation by Finance Director Carrie Winklebauer. Good evening, Carrie.
Good evening again. I had attached the general fund revenues and the general fund expense reports for the year ending 2018 in your packets. Again, these are unaudited figures. Our audit actually started today. And overall, we ended the year with an estimated surplus of approximately $570,116. The main cost savings were in the police, fire, parks, and some building maintenance departments. There were monies left over for salary accounts, overtime, and various other line items in those respective departments. At the end of 2018, our estimated undesignated fund balance compared to the 2019 budgets, as Jay had stated before, will be at approximately 28.31%. Again, it's just the estimated amount, so that's an increase from 25.11% from last year. And the main reason, as Jay had stated before as well, it's because of the settling of the taxi advance from 2017. So what happens is that gets pulled out of the undesignated fund balance. And so this year we actually received additional money from the state taxi grants from dating back to 2011 through 2016. That totaled about $98,334. So that helped settle that taxi advance down, and so that we actually have positive cash at the end of the year for the taxi fund. So that's the biggest contributor of the increase for the undesignated fund balance. Are there any questions on any of the reports that I had attached, or?
How long does it take you to get through that taxi advance math?
Yeah, it's good.
Yes, Craig.
The soapbox isn't worn out yet, so I'm going to still keep using it. Can you tell us that fund balance percentage, that's a ratio comparing what to what?
The undesignated fund balance compared to the next year's general fund budget.
So roughly $6 million compared to whatever our budget we think will be next year?
Mm-hmm. For the 2018, it's the undesignated fund balance compared to the 2019 general fund overall budget.
So in 2012, some of the council will remember that number, instead of being 28%, was 11%. And Moody's, who we may be frustrated with now, let us know that the minimum they like to see for communities our size is 17% as a floor, and then 30% as kind of a median of communities our size. So going from 11% to 28%, the percentages don't mean a heck of a lot, but we're on the verge of tripling what our fund balance was, and we're getting very close to this 30% median threshold, which is a pretty heavy lift. At the same time, we're paying down debt like we did. So thanks to staff and the council that had an impact on that.
Can I assume that Moody's will not be on your Christmas card list this year? All right, any other comments or questions for Carrie? If not, I would entertain a motion on this item.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Last call for comments or questions. Otherwise, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign, and that motion carries. Thanks a lot, Carrie. Item number 9 is a resolution accepting a donation from Mr. Ronald Gundrum. Presentation by Chief Kudek. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. I don't have any comments about Moody. So. You have before you a request to accept a donation. If you remember, our Paramedic Intercept program is a program the fire department uses. It provides 2 paramedics and a paramedic vehicle and paramedic medications and 2 paramedics that can provide skills to fire departments in the surrounding areas that do not have paramedics. In this case, it was with the Allenton Fire Department. We were called to the scene of Mr. Gundrum's wife. He was thankful for the service he received. Unfortunately, his wife did pass, but he was thankful for the service he received and in kind gave us this donation. The donation is going to go into the EMS fire donations account that we keep until we have a big item that we want to purchase.
Excellent. Thanks, Chief. Any comments or questions for Chief?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Last call for comments, questions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Thank you to Mr. Ronald Gundrum for his kind offering. Item number 10 is a 2019 collective bargaining agreement between the City of West Bend and the Dispatchers and Clerical Association, Local 503. Jay, did you want to touch on this at all?
Sure, I'll touch on it briefly. We met one time with Local 503, Michelle and I did, and had a nice conversation, and then a few email exchanges after that, and are recommending a 2% increase effective the date before you, March 24th, which would be the payroll that it falls on.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions for Jay? Otherwise, I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion carries. Being no further business before the Finance Committee, I adjourn.
Thanks, Rich. I'd like to call the City of West Bend Common Council for Monday, March 18th, 2029 to order. Item number 1, actually, we also roll call. We do have a quorum here this evening with Alderman Hoogaster absent and excused. Item number 1 is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of the Common Council dating back to March 4th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. Item number 2 is a presentation by Enterprise Fleet Management for the consideration of leasing city vehicles.
So I'm going to introduce the topic and then have Matt and Brett speak to it in some more detail. The presentation or their document and a case study has been added to your packet. City staff was contacted from Enterprise about a year ago now, 12 months almost exactly to the day. We've been engaged with conversations with them, had a small group of staff reviewing the possibility of leasing our city vehicles, our ancillary vehicles, so not the heavy equipment, not the police vehicles at this time, but the vehicles that are assessors, engineers, folks around City Hall, community development that use on a daily basis. So the ones that you see parked around City Hall, in addition to the light trucks that Public Works, utilities, parks use throughout the city as well. Those vehicles could be leased, and you see the terms that are attached to the lease rates and that kind of stuff for a few reasons. So one reason the city might engage into this is competing for capital improvement funds to replace these vehicles are difficult to compete against fire trucks and Public Works, snowplows, and other items that are pressing within our operation. So sometimes these vehicles do fall to the wayside. We have been recycling retired police cars. So the Vehicle Maintenance Department looks at our police car fleet when it's annually being turned and recommends keeping the best 1 or 2 vehicles, and those go into the city ancillary staff vehicle fleet, and then the rest of them go out to auction. So they do come to us with many miles and some years on them, and so the vehicle maintenance department has a stack at any given time of requests that are needed, not just for these vehicles. These vehicles are certainly not the bulk of their work orders, but they do compete for vehicle maintenance work order time as well. So that would be an advantage of going with a solution for our vehicles like this. They can be leased at a rate because of our buying power through the state rate, and then turned on a very frequent, and I'll let Matt speak to the timing of that, very frequent 12-month in some cases, because the resale cost, the miles that we put on are so low on an annual basis, the resale price that we would receive are pretty favorable for the city. All of those items together are the reasons we've been discussing it to date. And before we got too far, we've been certainly keeping department heads in the loop and having some conversations about what kind of vehicles we would replace our current vehicle fleet with those department heads. But before we got too far, we wanted to make sure that the council was tracking and encouraging us to pursue this further. So with that, Matt, do you want to talk through your document in some more detail?
Yes, absolutely. First and foremost, thank you for your time this evening. My name is Matt Jaskowiak. I'm an account executive for Enterprise Fleet Management. And over today, talk a little bit of highlights of what the due diligence the City of West Bend staff and my team have done over the last almost 12 months. 50% of the current fleet light-duty vehicles of the City of West Bend is approximately 10 years or older. It would take 19 total years for you guys to cycle through all 23 vehicles. And that's due to just budget constraints, capital budget constraints, high operating costs force you to replace vehicles on a slower rate. So the idea and the objectives that Enterprise brought to Jay and company were to utilize an open-end equity lease as a funding mechanism. Essentially allows you guys to avoid large capital budget outlay, allows you to get the same vehicle, considering your buying power with the government entities, and Enterprise's ability to sell vehicles for not only our government clients, but our non-government clients, allows you guys to have as little cash outlay as possible. So utilizing the buying power and capitalizing on the back end on the resale side of things. After putting all the analysis and financial data together that we compiled over almost 12 months of time, we've considered that the 30 vehicles that we started at there were 7 that were underutilized, and we're considering taking out of the city's fleet. So we are defleeting quite a bit. And then by replacing all the remaining 23 vehicles to date, utilizing the equity in those vehicles, 2019 we're approximating about $119,000 in a surplus because we're selling those vehicles right away and taking those current assets and paying for some future assets. With the low mileage usage the city does inquire with those vehicles, we are turning those vehicles specifically on a routine basis. So a pickup truck versus a small SUV are completely different DNA. They're sold different, they're bought different, they have different buyers for them, and so forth. So using all the data and analysis that Enterprise and your dedicated account manager will do for the city, we'll be able to go case by case, vehicle by vehicle. On the second page, the third page, there are some target replacement strategies that we put there as far as what vehicle types there are and what approximate terms we're looking at as far as a pickup truck, small SUV, or larger SUVs. And just to kind of highlight the overview, in the next 10 years, we approximate about $275,000 in savings by operating a roughly 2-year-old fleet versus a 19-year-old fleet. So it's cycling through your 23 vehicles just about every 2 years. So it seems far on the other side of the spectrum from 19 years to 2 years, but it's simply just math, cents and dollars from buying the way you guys buy vehicles and the way Enterprise can actually sell vehicles to third-party buyers. In the second page, kind of gives you a breakdown of the replacement worksheet, so what vehicles are on duty today and what we would be replacing them with. The menu pricing on the bottom of page 2 will itemize out what vehicles Jay and company have figured out which vehicles we would replace if we could. And the quantity, terms, and estimated mileages and monthly rate costs are included in there. And those numbers should then support the 10-year overview analysis on the 4th page. And that is a 10-year conceptual analysis that shows you over the next 10 years by leasing vehicles and cycling the respected units at their respected times. Should allow you to save just over $275,000. And then with that, I can take any questions.
Go ahead, Rich. One question for you. Obviously, we would be selling off those vehicles that are listed on page 2 there, and then leasing the numbers that are at the bottom there. It's a little concerning to me that, you know, we could get a good rate from a lease this year, and then all of a sudden we don't have any vehicles, and then the rate goes up, and we're kind of left holding the bag. So, what kind of agreement is there in place that we won't see, you know, large swings in the pricing of the vehicles?
That's a good question. So just to confirm, when you receive a vehicle, a brand new vehicle, and it's on a lease agreement, that agreement is locked in the day the vehicle delivers. So as soon as that vehicle is parted ways and we sell that vehicle off, that lease agreement is terminated. So it would be more or less, if that replacement vehicle is coming in, we're not guaranteeing that we can keep the same lease rate 12 months from now, 24 months from now, but the conceptual analysis will show if the rates for some reason stayed the same, the idea of leasing vehicles versus just strictly paying cash, cycling the vehicles, the current philosophy of today, would actually pan out more financially beneficial for your taxpayers.
And then the second question I had was around, you know, some of these are pretty heavily used. You've got a 3/4 ton pickup. Stuff gets thrown into the back of that pickup.
Yeah.
Damage, what are we kind of held to as far as damage and things like that?
So good question. These leases are ownership leases, so they're not what you may familiarize yourself with, a dealership lease, so a closed-end lease. These are open-end equity leases, so essentially you retain all ownership benefits of the vehicle. The open-end equity lease is just a different way to fund a vehicle than a traditional finance or paying cash down to a $0 book value. So essentially, I lost my train of thought.
No, if there's any dings or dents,
Yeah,
anything
sorry,
like
yep.
that, there's no penalties for that, no over mileage penalties for wear and tear or anything like that. These are business and government operating leases that you will not be charged for any dings or dents or over mileage penalties. So
75% of our customers just in Wisconsin are contractor type businesses, so we're very used to seeing vehicles far more used than yours and far worse damage or condition, you should say.
Mike?
Thanks for the presentation, fellas. I have a few questions. One of them would be, I'm not sure if it clearly explains here, but regular maintenance on the leased vehicles. I guess part of the idea for leasing vehicles is to reduce the maintenance on our vehicles for our departments that are working on our other vehicles. So what sort of regular maintenance is involved with the lease package?
Good question. So based on the analysis and data that we received, the annual mileage trends that these vehicles are going, based on the type of cycle we're looking at, anywhere from 12 months to 36 months, would actually not necessarily require any maintenance outside of any warranty issues that would come up, which would be, you know, taken to the local dealer to be solved. So based on the time, you know, for 12 months to 36 months, based on regular recommended oil change intervals by the manufacturer, some vehicles will not even touch those intervals.
Okay, so regular oil changes, fluid changes, all that stuff is still the responsibility of us in doing our due diligence to maintain the vehicles according to manufacturer specifications?
That is correct. So if an oil change scenario would come up, that would be what would be followed. In this example, if it held true, every vehicle went the mileage we're saying it will be based on historical trends, the chances of actual maintenance having to be done is very slim.
So what about the case of a flat tire?
Yeah, and as need basis. So essentially, we have 30,000 plus vendors across the country. We have resources and technology for employees of the city that you can utilize in case they are out of network, as far as out of your city area, to help with AAA roadside assistance or any local vendors that can assist. Enterprise would then help pay for that repair up front with the vendor, and then we would consolidate it and bill probably carry by department, however the billing is set up then the next month.
Okay. But in general, this isn't a, hey, we'll lease the vehicles from you guys and you're going to cover all the expenses incurred with this. That's not the case.
Correct. We do have programs available, but based on the mileage trends and terms we're talking about, any fixed or inflation-proof maintenance program that we do offer other municipalities and clients of ours, you guys are just not traveling anywhere near the amount of miles to have that program, so it just didn't make any financial sense to.
Right, and that's the good, did you have
So just to further elaborate, so essentially the maintenance is pay-as-you-go, and we're expecting such a small amount of maintenance on these vehicles based on the lowest total cost of ownership that we can actually run these vehicles at, anywhere from 1 to 3 years, that it should just be oil changes, hopefully in that period is what we're projecting at this point.
Right. And we're kind of looking at potentially every 3 years replacing the fleet at this, with the current structure that's been talked about?
Markets change, just like interest rates, you ebbs and flows. So you have Enterprise as your fleet experts. So we're going to run analysis, a few times a year and sit down with the decision makers and have an idea of, what to be proactively planning for. And so if on here we're saying, hey, every 12 months we're going to look at cycling out pickup trucks just because of what you buy them for and what we can actually sell them for and how many miles are on them, things do change. So we'll assess that as far as, the time goes and the partnership carries on.
As I'm looking over the projected types of vehicles as opposed to the vehicles that we would be replacing, I don't see any compact car or something like the Chevy Impala, which we have. It's all truck style vehicles or SUVs. Yep. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, great question. So simply, Enterprise, we always put our clients first to try to find the lowest cost of ownership route. So operating vehicles at the most cost-effective rate without sacrificing quality or safety. So when you run the numbers, cents and dollars, the incentives that government clients are able to get on pickup trucks and the amount of miles you're traveling, and then what the resale residual value are on these vehicles, if by and far makes way more financial sense to operate actually a pickup truck for the taxpayers than it does to run a subcompact car that has much littler incentives and does not sell for as much in the back end due to lower gas prices, trends in the marketplace of people looking more in the SUV pickup truck type vehicles.
Does that also then cover the idea of economically friendly vehicles or electric vehicles or anything like that?
So I guess to answer your question, none of these vehicles are any hybrid or electric type vehicles. But if you look at a fleet that's on average, 10 years or older versus a fleet that's 2 years or older, obviously the newer fleet's going to be a little bit more economically friendly, better carbon footprint of that nature.
And then I think my final question, it might actually be for Jay, but when you're doing these analysis, are there any insurance benefits to going with leased vehicles as opposed to owned vehicles? With new technologies in place on these vehicles, are we set to maybe experience some positive savings as far as insurance costs? Or has that not been considered?
I would say it's not been considered yet. If the council encourages us to move forward, we'll have a conversation with our insurance vendor. Or Brett, I don't know if you can speak to other municipalities that you work with, if that's been the case or not.
Yeah, I would think it's more of a safety and compliance measure, that your employees are driving newer, more reliable vehicles with better safety technology, protecting your constituents. I mean, there's vehicle technology out there that stop vehicles on them by themselves without touching the brake. So the thought is running newer, more efficient vehicles. If we can financially prove that it makes sense to do it, great. Operationally and then administratively, all those buckets should fall in the line. So it's more of a safety and compliance standard. As far as insurance benefits go, that would just be something we'll have to consult with after.
Okay. And then of your current partners, who have you been working with the longest as far as municipalities?
City of Wausau has been a client of ours for 3+ years, have gotten a few rounds of vehicles from us, and are a great resource. I know Jay The reference list is there on the bottom there to reach out to those folks. I do know Jay did his due diligence in asking questions and what other municipalities are doing. And then the Kenosha Unified School District, I know they're a school district, but fleet management's still fleet management. They've been with us for 5+ years and have routinely been on a better cycle. And I believe the case study should be in the packet that annually we're saving them roughly $100,000 per year just in maintenance costs.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Mhm.
Chris, your question get asked?
No, good.
John?
Yeah, what happens if a vehicle that's under warranty, you take care of that, correct?
If it's under warranty, the manufacturer would actually take care of that. The process would be with you guys just ultimately getting the vehicle to the respected manufacturer.
Okay, now, would you supply a vehicle, or would just be without a vehicle at that point then? Sometimes it takes a couple weeks for something that's major.
It's a good question. So we're the Enterprise Rent-A-Car family, so we're still the Taylor family out of St. Louis, so we have different transportation solutions. We wouldn't be charging you to pay for a rental program already in place if that scenario were to come up. So it'd be like an as-need basis. So if something were to come up, you would contact directly with your Enterprise account management team, and then we could certainly rapidly send over a reservation or book a vehicle for temporary use.
Okay.
It would be a pay-as-you-go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got a couple if nobody else does. Jay and/or Carrie, on an annual basis, approximately how much are we investing in these types of vehicles from a new perspective? How many, I know we're not buying new pickup trucks and new cargo vans, but we're buying some vehicles that are bumping some of these out. I don't need to know that number now, but if we decide to go for it, I'd like to look at that comparison, how much are we borrowing for? And the rationale is, year two, we'd have $135,000 presumably. That's got to come out of the budget to lease a whole bunch of vehicles. What can that be offset by? Can we reduce, we just agreed to a new $3 million capital projects budget, or discussed it. Can that be 2.95 if we're buying 50 grand worth of vehicles a year? So if you could dig into that, that'd be helpful. And guys, your $275,000 budget is predicated primarily on the cost of the lease, which you're showing as being the same for the next 10 years, and also based on the equity that we can get out of these leased vehicles once we sell them. How good are you guys at keeping lease rates the same for 10 years, and how good are you at estimating the value of these vehicles as we cycle through them?
Yeah, both valid, very great questions. As far as the lease rates go, the analysis that we put together is a conceptual analysis. So you can't hold us to it 10 years from now, but the idea is, conceptually, can we operate a healthier fleet of vehicles, more efficient than what's currently being present today? The whole goal was to be a break-even. I've talked to Jay about that. If we can be a break-even and run 2-year-old vehicles versus 19, this is a huge win for the taxpayers. So what we're trying to do is just show a conceptual overview of if that were to be the case, how would it look for a 10-year roll? Incentives do change year over year. Manufacturers change body styles, prices of vehicles do increase. With that, the residual on the back end do usually increase as well. Enterprise does buy 1 million cars a year and sells 1 million cars a year. We do have a very good idea of the market trends. There's a right time to buy vehicles, and there's definitely a right time to sell vehicles, and we know the ins and outs of the market. So we're very confident that any numbers that we show our clients in advance of partnering, we're very confident on the conservative side of things that we would be able to reach at least those goals.
And Craig, one thing I'll elaborate on that is we are very good at, forecasting on how well we can sell the vehicles, how well we can buy the vehicles, at what time of year. If we were to reference our oldest government customer, which is Kenosha Unified School District, they've been partnering with us for almost 9 years at this point. We've actually been able to sustain their budget over that 9 years. Based on when we sell these vehicles, we applied the equity of selling those vehicles towards the new vehicles to drive down the cost and keep it the exact same cost over the 9 years that we've been partnering with them.
Mm-hmm. And just to continue on that, on page 4, go to year 2020, $135,000 in lease payments. That is being offset to a budget of just under $70,000 after we sell the first the second round of vehicles. So when you look at the bottom right, the vehicle replacement target, 12 months for half-ton and three-quarter-ton trucks, 36 months for SUVs, and the passenger vans are 60. So every year there's vehicles that are going to be sold, and those dollars and gains, what our clients do is pass those over and pay down future assets. So your overall budget should reflect not 135, yes, that goes out, but what's coming back, it does come back, and your budget should be, sustainable for about $10,000 to $12,000 annually over the 10 years, and so on.
So Jay, you're looking for kind of a friendly smile that says, let's explore this. To be honest, I'm pretty intrigued by figuring out a way to add $135,000 to our budget and reduce debt, have our employees drive newer, safer, more efficient vehicles. If we can work those dollars into our annual budget, I'd prefer to be paying cash for these types of things versus continuing to borrow. I think Moody's would appreciate that as well. So if there isn't any major objection, I'd sure like to explore it a bit. Your proposal says that the lease rates are conservative, and you call them conceptual, so I'd like to figure out what the difference is between conservative and conceptual, and if that lands at a midpoint someplace. At the same time, this is a sort of, you do it or you don't. You don't decide after 3 years that you don't like the program, sell over vehicles, and then we're buying 23 new vehicles in one shot. So it's, I think, a big decision, but to me it seems like it's worthy of some exploration. Anybody disagree? Jade, anything you need other than?
No, that's enough. That's enough feedback.
I will add just one thing as far as the lease rates go that were provided on the menu pricing. Those are hard actual rates if 2019 vehicles were to be ordered.
Gotcha. So they're conceptual.
Only past tonight.
Anybody else? Have at it. Thanks for the presentation. I like
Thank
the
you,
idea.
guys. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Moving ahead, item number 3, a discussion of Washington County proposed bikeway and trail network plan, and a presentation tonight by City Engineer Max Marichal. Good evening, Max.
Good evening. Thank you. So Washington County is developing a plan, a bikeway and trail network plan, countywide, and in order to help guide them in the future when they build these kind of improvements for bike use, pedestrian use throughout the county. And so they're looking to approve the plan at their level, I believe in the next couple of months. And so before that, I wanted to bring it up to council's attention because some of the segments of the plan are within the city of West Bend. So at some point in the future, the county will probably approach the city about installing those improvements on city streets and elsewhere in the city. And so that's why I wanted to bring it up. And we invited Deborah Selsky, who's the county deputy planning and parks administrator. If you have any questions on the content of the plan or scheduling, funding, whatever. So.
Funding would be nice to know.
So if you have questions, Deborah could come in and answer them. Otherwise, I was just bringing it to the council's attention.
I've got a couple questions if you feel like fielding a few. Good evening.
Good evening.
I did not read through the whole packet. I just zoomed in on the map. And I see there are a few dates on some of these. There's a real long-range 2050 vision.
Yeah.
From the county's perspective, what are you thinking implementation phase starts? Is that a 2019, 2020? When is that happening?
Well, I would anticipate that once the plan is adopted, there's well over a couple hundred miles of proposed trails. And the county doesn't have the resources to tackle all of that at once, obviously. So once the plan is adopted, we're actually going to be putting together a 5-year strategic plan and focusing in on, 1 or 2 corridors and looking at the implementation and working with and meeting with all of those landowners at that time. I anticipate that the plan will be adopted in a couple of months, and then probably a couple of months to work out the details of the strategic plan. So I would anticipate that the initial implementation would begin in 2020, although that implementation would really look like grant writing, looking at potential funding sources, partnerships, looking at hiring engineering firms to look at the detailed studies and engineering of those proposed routes. The plan is just a guide, like any long-term planning document. An additional engineering and study and discussion with willing landowners will need to take place before we even start true implementation construction. I would anticipate that that would be out a couple of years. It will take some time to get through that process.
Okay. And do you know, and Max, maybe you can answer this, does this go hand in hand? Does this conflict with bike-friendly West Bend folks? I'm sure you've talked with them. Is that, as far as the city itself is concerned, does it work in conjunction with what their findings have been?
Yeah, actually, when we started the planning process, we looked at not just the plan that Bike Friendly had put together, but also all the local plans and the plans that have been done in the surrounding municipalities and counties as well, because we really want to make those connections. We met with Bike Friendly West Bend. We are in the preliminary stages of preliminary design stages of the plan. We anticipate that there'll be a final draft that will be ready later on this week for review. In our discussions with Bike Friendly West Bend, we did identify, I think it was 3 different routes that did overlap. So they were very happy with those results.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Mike?
Yes, I just have one further question. For a few years now, the county has been dealing with budget restraints regarding mandated programs versus additional programs, quality of life programs, which I kind of consider this in that category. So can you speak at all to why they're considering this sort of thing rather than continuing on their mandated program mission?
Well, the county has identified, it was through their priority-based budgeting process, I believe is what you're referring to. Yes, and the trails, the proposed trail plan goes hand in hand with the park system, so it'll be parks and trails eventually when we do get the plan implemented. And we're going to continue to look for additional funding sources like grants to help implement this, and partnerships, potentially sponsorships as well for some of these priority corridors, very similar to what we're doing to help fund the parks. The county has identified this plan and the implementation of the plan as a high priority. They have set aside last year $175,000 through the CIP program, and is looking at $250,000 a year for the next 5 years through the CIP as well. That doesn't go a long way when you're talking about constructing trails, but that will help as seed money for hiring an engineer to doing studies, or as a match for grants.
Anybody else? See you in a couple of years.
Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation.
Yep.
Thanks, Max. Moving ahead to the consent agenda, items 4 through 25 can be taken together.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Under items for consideration is item number 26, resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $5.230 million in general obligation corporate purpose bonds, series 2019A.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oop, I'm sorry, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Butchlick?
Aye.
Alderman Christian?
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier?
Aye.
Alderman Jenkins?
Aye.
Alderman Caston?
Aye.
Alderman oops, sorry, he's absent. Alderman Model?
Aye.
Alderman Kist?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Item number 27, which will also need a roll call vote.
Motion to approve.
Is resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $1,990,000 in taxable general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2019B. Let me ask a quick question. That still includes the 15 grand write-down, is that appropriate? The 1.19, isn't it 1.975? It's really $1,975,000 in taxable general obligation refunding bonds, Series 219B.
Because of the 15,000.
We might have to go back to A then and modify as well.
The savings, are you looking at the agenda that was printed before today's sale?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what we were instructed to put on the agenda because we don't know the numbers until today.
No, it's fine. I'm just,
Yep.
as long as we're making sure people are doing roll call votes, let's make sure it's the right number.
And we do have the correct resolutions to sign.
Okay, so we're okay with item 26, and item 27 is 1.975. Got it.
That's because of your good sale day.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Butchlick?
Aye.
Alderman Christian?
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier?
Aye.
Alderman Jenkins?
Aye.
Alderman Caston?
Aye.
Alderman Model?
Aye.
Alderman Kist?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thanks to Ayers, we appreciate it. Item number 28, 2019 collective bargaining agreement between the City of West Bend and the Dispatchers and Clerical Association Local 503.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. Item 29 is a resolution amending the traffic manual for the City of West Bend.
I can speak to it.
And Ian, you can speak to that.
Yep.
Great.
So items 29 and 30 are both come out of the recommendations of the Safety Commission. So 29 is the standard resolution amending various items in the traffic manual. 30 is amending different items of the heavy truck route that was recommended by the Safety Commission. Because the heavy truck route is an ordinance, we had to separate those out separately to amend that section of the ordinances.
Okay. Any questions regarding item number 29?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 30 is an ordinance amending section 7.05 of the municipal code regarding heavy truck routes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item 31 is rezone approximately 1.56 acres of land located at 1100 through 1102 South Main Street and a portion of 1022 South Main Street from B4 General Business and Warehouse District to B1 Community Business District. And we have a presentation tonight by James Renke, Business and Development Planner.
Good evening. Tonight's proposal is for a zoning change over, it's actually across the street for the Kingpin parcel. It has two zonings, a B1 and a B4 parcel. The B4 was actually an old zoning from the previous development pattern there. So this ordinance is to clean up that. Along with the zoning change, Aldi's Corporation is working with Kingpin to acquire some of the property from them. There are two existing buildings behind the Aldi's building. Those two would be demolished and that would be acquired by the Aldi's property to facilitate the building addition there. So this ordinance here is to just change that zoning to be consistent with the remaining area of B1 to facilitate that redevelopment.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Item 32 is a resolution to narrow and discontinue and the discontinuance of the eastern portion of Meadowcraft Road right-of-way. And again, presentation by Jim.
Thanks. This resolution tonight is being proposed. The state statutes allows the council to reduce right-of-ways and discontinue right-of-ways as they see needed. Meadowcraft Road is an 80-foot wide right-of-way. It's an oversized right-of-way, so we're proposing to narrow it down to 70 foot. This is to help facilitate the development and building addition for the Metalcraft property, which would be going to Plan Commission in April for their consideration for site improvements. So we're asking the council to reduce the right-of-way for that to facilitate that development, and then we would also carry over some easements for the drainage ditch over there, just to ensure proper drainage. This narrowing actually does not impact any of the existing infrastructure out in that area.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Jim.
All right, thank you.
Under reports, item number 33 is a report by Alderman Christian regarding the downtown bid board meeting.
All right, we had a fairly light agenda. Shirley Decker from Roots and Branches came and reported on some projects and had a budget request for the year 2019. We approved that request. She also wanted us to make sure that we made public the spring cleanup day is May 20th, 2019. So if anybody feels like volunteering their time on May 20th, come on downtown and help us tidy up the area a little bit. And also we had a report from the Commons Task Force. If you'll remember, that's the group that we put together to kind of look at the information that Commons group had given us regarding some opportunities in the downtown area. That task force is continuing to explore one of the options that we really liked, and it's called we're calling it the Entrepreneur Grant Program, and that's the idea is to assist potential new businesses in the area with professional advice from some of the current bid board or bid members, anybody who's doing business in the downtown area, as far as financial advice, marketing advice, business plan writing, all sorts of things that might be beneficial to new businesses in the area. So our business owners are collectively coming together to reach out and help new businesses that are thinking about coming to the area. So we think that's a neat program. And some of the other events and ideas that the Commons group had brought to our attention are being vetted and looked at with the cooperation of the Downtown Association to potentially bring some new ideas and events to the area. And that's it.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike? Item 34, the report by either Alderman Jenkins or Caston regarding the Plan Commission.
Sure. We looked at a couple things. First off, we approved the zoning, survey map, and site plan for the Aldi's expansion that we just talked about a little bit ago. We approved a site plan expansion for a patio for Krimmer's Restaurant downtown. So excited to see that get up and running. We approved the parking lot reconfiguration for property at 3215 West Washington, and approved the site plan to construct cold storage units at the corner of Lang Street and North River Road. And then finally approved the annexation petition for the properties from the town of Trenton to the city of West Bend along Ruska Road for possible future industrial use.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Last but not least, item 35, a report by new grandpa Alderman Model regarding the historic Barton Business Association. Congrats on the new family member.
Thank you, Craig. Lots of stuff going on up in Barton this summer, mainly. We are wanting to, there's an Overlook Park is right next to Rally Time. We're actually looking at trying to rename that and do a memorial along with a flagpole and name the whole thing after Ed Groth, one of the firefighters that has died in the line of duty in West Bend. And to fund that, we've got a bunch of events going on. We got the first one's a brat fry on Mother's Day. We're going to have Boondock Boogie as a band. They're going to be there from 11 to 3. The brat fry itself is from 9 to 3. June 8th is a dog parade. That's new this year. That's going to start at 11:30 right after the market downtown, and go till whenever. We've got Vinyl Road is the band that's going to play there, and Jeff Spirits is providing the beer trailer. And then the 4th of July parade, after the 4th of July parade at the, I just forget the name of that part of the park, down at Regner Park anyways. There's another brat fry. And Barton Day on September 7th, we're still kind of working on exactly what that's going to mean, but it's definitely going to be a car show and brat fry and a bunch of other fun stuff. So we'll stay tuned for that. October 26th is the Harvest Moon Festival, and that we're going to try to, that's what we've been doing that at St. Mary's. We're going to try to move that over to Lac La Ronde. It's kind of a little bit of a gamble weather-wise because we want to do it in the barn, and it's a little bit late in the year, but we want to also bring back bluegrass to Lac La Ronde, which I think it's been a while since they've done that. So it'll be a bluegrass barn dance instead of a polka church dance. So we'll see if that works a little better. Anyways, Sandy's Italian Beef will be there, like always, and that's about it for that. Okay, bike racks. We ordered 6 bike racks from the school. My brain's not working. Sorry. There's a cooperation between Bike Friendly West Bend and MPTC. The students do the bike racks, and they sell them to us at a really reasonable price. And they're going to actually put the symbol that we use in the HPBA. I know you're not going to be able to see this, but yeah, never mind. Anyways, it's going to be customized, so those will be really cool. And then part of the memorial that we want to do around the flagpole, which was donated by the folks at Barton School, by the way, the flagpole was. Part of the memorial is going to be sold pavers that have like a family name or a business name etched into them. And I actually have applications for that if you want to. Or you can stop at Deb Slice or Jeff Slice, Over the Moon, and the woodworking place. So, or you can stop by Do Your Hair Justice, and we can get you set up. Also, banners. We're selling more banners. I don't know if you've noticed the banners on Main Street going up into Barton. They're kind of sparse right now, but we're getting more and more people buying them, and they're starting to really fill in. That's starting to look really nice. So that's about it.
Lots of fun stuff happening up at the HBBA. Anybody else? Any questions for Justice? Then being no further business before the Common Council, I adjourn. Are there any other announcements tonight? Have a great evening, everyone.